Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Come on in, sit for a spell. We're going to dive into a collective look at what's going down in this lunar cycle that's being kicked off today with a Scorpio new moon that came in at 28 degrees. It is perhaps the most dynamic new moon of the entire year, and that is because it's really ushering in a renewal cycle. We know that when we're dealing with eighth house matters, we are looking at the cycles of life. And this is when we start to get into the rebirth of Venus energy. Of course, this particular new moon is reflecting back to the time of the Libra new moon that came in on the 21st of October, right on the cusp of Scorpio season, and was really resonating with the first decanate of Scorpio. We will be looking at the decanates just in terms of transits that are in play right now, how they influence those decanates so we can better understand this territory that we've been collectively moving through. That being said, if you are born within one of those decanates, the messages will specifically drive home for you, but all of us can take a little piece of wisdom from the eighth house mysteries forward with us by looking at the season we're moving through that lens, how it is expressed in terms of the decanates. And when we're looking at the decanates, they are different energies connected to different phases of life as well. So it's especially fitting when we're looking at it through the Scorpio lens. So we're looking at the maiden or the lad aspect with the first decanate, and with the second decanate, we are looking at the mother or father lens. And when we are looking at the third decanate, we're looking at the crone or the high priestess, the wizard or the sage archetype. And I like to bring it in both masculine and feminine polarities because I do feel that's an important part of alchemy. And that's why we're looking at the territory we're moving through in this regard, bringing in these different elements of the decanates. It's all about how can we work with the energy of Scorpio when we're moving through Scorpio season, even if we don't have significant Scorpio placements. But naturally, for those Scorpios out there or those with real strong placements, you're definitely feeling this energy right now, okay? This new moon is connected to a pretty interesting Sabian symbol that I want to bring in. It is the king of the fairies approaching his domain. And so really what this Sabian symbol is all about, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Sabian symbols, they're archetypal symbols that you can work with to help you relate to the expression of the energy. And this can help you master some tricky scenarios that are put in play by the planetary motions and also the fixed stars that come into play. And so I like to bring them in because archetypal symbolism is something that can transcend all borders. It can transcend language borders. When we look at things from that perspective of an archetype, it's something that no matter where we come from in the world, we can all find a connecting point with that. And they're powerful. They really do help you tap into a well of understanding that I feel is really difficult to come into alignment with otherwise. So what we're looking at with this particular Sabian symbol, obviously there's a little bit of magic at play, but that shouldn't be surprising, right? The house of Scorpio does rule over occult matters, and because of the energies in play astrologically, the occult influence will be at the forefront through this cycle that is going to endure just on a more superficial level, okay? Because we really have to understand that all these energies that are being set in motion right now are leading us up to the buildup of that Aquarian ring of fire that comes in on the 17th of February 2026. But in terms of this particular lunar cycle, right, let's just condense it a little bit. It's most strongly going to be felt up until the Sagittarian new moon that comes in on December 19th, okay? So when we're looking at this Sabian symbol of the king of the fairies approaching his domain, we're looking at a matter of inner sovereignty. And that's all about where are we at? Where is our own internal compass at in terms of how we view our place in the world and our ability to act in accordance with our own will, and our will that is calibrated to our heart space. What we know to be intrinsically true, right, just according to our own essential nature, not clouded by societal norms or going along with the crowd, what everybody else is doing, or what's done in the name of progress without considering the ramifications of that, how it influences the collective energy, and when we're looking through the lens of fairy, how it impacts the environment. And so this is really about getting yourself centered in that place of understanding what it really means to be in charge of your domain. And we first look at that internalized, of course, because whatever's going on in here is what's going to influence what we see out there mirrored in the world around us. And of course, we got a lot of other projections that are out there in the world put out by other people with their own free will. But see, the thing is, when you've polished the mirror within, the reflection you see without will become clarified, and you won't take on projections that aren't aligned with your own inner reflection. You know what I mean? So you don't take on things that are not in harmony with your own inner sense of stature, all right? And this is what's coming forward at this time to really make sure that you're achieving this sort of inner calibration. Where are you at? What is your core truth? Where are you at in terms of your own integrity and how that's reflected in the world around you? What you create space for in your life, what you interact with, what you feed, what you nurture. This is all coming up for review, and it's very important that you operate from this place, understanding that you are in charge of your domain. You are the ruler of your kingdom, and it's up to you how that is represented in your earth walk. Are you showing up in that way? This does require you to have a keen awareness of your true desires. What are your yearnings? What do you long for? This is so important for you to be aware of this and to understand where those yearnings come from. Are they coming from your place of sovereignty within that is in alignment with your integrity? Or does it come from your lower nature? And if it comes from your lower nature or the more subconscious driving aspects, are you willing to look at that so you can get a clear view about where the true deepest yearnings of your soul stem from? Or is this something that is more a programmed sort of conditioning, okay? And then it's about determining where your allegiance lies. What are you loyal to? These are deep questions, and these are things that are coming up for our review and reflection at this time, yes. To come into proper alignment. I love how we got this reflective quality right there. And how do we enter this point of reflection? Well, first we have to let the false mask fall away. We have to create a crack in the facade where the growth can come through. And this is only illuminated through that point of reflection that can be arrived at through the avenue of stillness. This brings about a balancing of what has been coming to a place of fruition with what got set in motion with that Libra new moon that came in on the 21st. This is when we're starting to see more of the picture and more of ourselves, aspects of ourselves we haven't seen before, reflected in our desires. Okay, so it's healthy to really look at our desires and look at our loyalties, look at what we've pledged allegiance to, and then understanding, are those things harmonized or are they at odds with one another? Am I loyal to certain qualities, associations, investments of my time and energy that actually run counter, are oppositional to my true soul's yearnings? This is important to understand because it's a point of transformation. And until you can see through the social posturing or the face you wear to move about in the world to find your way easier to navigate, even if that requires you to compromise your deepest yearnings of your soul, that's something that needs to be transmuted and gone beyond before you can truly receive the empowerment of what it means to move through the 8th house mysteries. This is a time when our creative mind must be at the forefront, and it must stay focused only on what we want to come to pass. So there's a lot of lessons coming through during this time that are about alchemy, how to truly call in that which is your soul's deepest yearning. This is what this Scorpio new moon is here to teach us. It's here to remind us that imagination is our superpower, and that requires us to wield it wisely. Why? Because wherever you focus your imagination consistently with detail, especially when you're feeding it with emotion, well, then something that never existed can become so, all right? So if you're, yes, look at this, okay? So we have inner peace here coming out in reverse with the number 9, that South Node territory there, yes, okay? So if you're in a place where you haven't dealt with your resentments, where you haven't dealt with your disappointments, you haven't dealt with your fears, you haven't dealt with your anxieties, your insecurities, all that stuff you like to sweep under the rug, your imagination can work against you. Your imagination is that powerful that it can call in whatever your imagination is fixated on. Now, why would we want to use our creative brain space in that way where we're focusing it on our fears, on the what ifs, on the distortions of that creative power that will thereby manifest that very thing that we're stressed about? And yet we'll say, oh, it's fate. I knew that was going to happen. No, you created it. You called it in from feeding it with your constant focus. And it's really hard once you get rooted in that kind of pattern to change that up, right? I mean, it's more familiar to navigate that kind of territory where everything goes awry, where everything is a mess, where it doesn't come into alignment. And actually, we can become quite loyal to these sort of mindsets. And then we don't understand why our life continues to roll out in the same sort of repetitive ways. So I really want you to keep this in the forefront of your consciousness as you're moving through this territory. Imagination is my superpower. And look at both the shadow and light aspects of that. Understand that it's probably a lot more challenging for you to focus your imagination on the positive. But what if you challenged yourself, okay? What if you challenged yourself during this particular lunar cycle, getting kicked off today with this Scorpio new moon, all the way in the lead up to the Sagittarian new moon, 1422 on the clock. Yes, this is a building block here. This is how you can come into alignment with your soul's deepest yearnings, your soul's deepest desires. You can create a sense of empowerment through your longings by letting your longing, your yearning, your desire be the focus, the sole focus on what you're wanting to call in. As much as you give your fears, as much as you give your worries, as much as you give your what ifs, that kind of focus, see if you can flip-flop it just for this lunar cycle and experiment. And in fact, every time you find yourself going into your resentment or your anger or your frustration around some persnickety situation that you've been dealing with for who knows how long, call yourself back to this moment with that cue. Wait a minute. Imagination is my superpower. Call yourself out. Right now, I'm letting my imagination fixate on the ghosts of regret, on the ghosts of the past. I'm feeding the spirit of that thing. Hold up. Wait a minute. What is my deepest yearning? What is my deepest desire? And I encourage you, in order to make this really a powerful exercise in really discovering just how much power you truly hold, pick one thing. Get in touch with it. Get in touch with it today as we're in this dark moon phase. Give yourself an opportunity to have a little point of reflection this evening or whenever you come to this, to sit and really ask yourself, what is my soul's deepest yearning? If I could achieve anything for myself, leave other people out of it. This is about your soul's desires, okay? Don't make it contingent on somebody else's involvement. If you could achieve something for yourself, if you could have what you desire for yourself, what would that look like? Get in touch with that. Allow yourself to explore that. And once you arrive at it, okay, the first thing, and it's okay because your yearnings can shift and change and evolve over time, all right? You're not bound to this for all eternity. Just pick one thing at this time to work with during this lunar cycle. Let that be your point of focus for your imagination. And the key is to consistently put your focus on that, imagining what it would be like to have that deepest yearning fulfilled. See it with detail and make it something that you've never experienced before, something that has never existed in your kingdom. So you can work with that energy of that fairy king to call it into being. It's like you're calling the magic of your imagination into your domain to create what you want to see. 17 on the clock when I brought that in. That is how you call your star into view. It is your guiding light. Let it be your point of focus. Let it be your point of fixation and not anything else, okay? When the mind wanders and you notice it starts to go to that more shadowy terrain, just call to mind that cue. Imagination is my superpower, and it will remind you to come back to work with your imagination like you did when you were a kid. You didn't imagine horrible, awful things that could happen to you when you were a kid. You had fun with it, and that's what you need to recover here. See, this is where it really does get into a bit of that tempering, because it requires that you have a disciplined mind. It requires that you have a mind that's able to focus, and that's why meditation is so beneficial during this cycle, especially with all the energy we have whirling around, all the Neptunian energy and everything going on with Uranus, and we'll get into that. But I kind of want to just open first with these Sabian symbols here and get us some themes to work with, all right? Something that we can apply practical energy to that can really show us sort of the foundation of alchemy. It starts here. This is a very important key, all right? So the thing is that you have to harness your mind. And that's why having a focal point can be very helpful. So if you're going to focus on something, Let your meditations become a time for your imagination to run wild and free in the best way. And when you do see it heading down into that shadowy territory, call it back into the light actively in your meditation. Let the shadows drift by like leaves would float by on that river of Eridanus, okay? That is the way that you can keep your focus very clear, see? Because when your inner vision is clear and is hardwired to expectation of the fulfillment of your yearnings, of your longings, of your desire, sky's the limit. Great things are possible. And we are going to have more of that sort of grand air trine that fed into the grand water trine continue to flow on. More of that grand water trine energy is coming in here to carry us forward. So we're still riding this way, all right? This is key. And so you may wonder, well, how do I do that? You know, how do I really do that? If I'm so hardwired to call my fears toward me, if I tend to be a worrywart, if I'm having a hard time because I'm really fixated on a situation that's been a constant irritation for me for a long time, how can I get my imagination untangled from that? Well, the means of expansion, the Sabian symbol that's a means of expansion, is coming through quite ironically Taurus 2 degrees, all right? And that's an electrical storm. That's the Tower of Power coming down, man. That is the awakening moment of the lightning striking to put a little heat on our butts to let us know, hey, like it or not, here comes your epiphany of light. It's going to illuminate everything for you. And we know that we got that retrograde action going on with Uranus and Taurus, where you know, Taurus isn't comfortable there, but this is where we have to get out of our comfort zone and we have to look at some things that may be a little shocking. And see, this shock, though, isn't coming from just anywhere. This is a new moon in Scorpio. This shock is coming from the spiritual realms, and it is activating on the physical realm of reality. So this is when there's something else. There's a bit of the mystery steering the course at this time, and what comes in lights up the landscape for the sake of our transformation. This is when we are going to get called to the mat, where we've been very resistant to change, and we're going to recognize we got to transform internally if we ever expect anything in our outer reality to shift. This is the point where you got to be the change you want to see in the world. And if you're reluctant to look at the ways that you need to change, you're going to get hit by that lightning, man. And it's going to be coming down from the ether. It's coming down from the spiritual realm. So there's nothing you can do to resist this. It's like the difference between looking at just a standard minor card or being dealt a major arcana here. And yeah, there's some purification needed here. We see that. And what's really needing purification at this time is the fear of moving into the unknown with that Jaguar medicine coming in. It also requires us to move forward with that inner sovereignty, which is also so deeply rooted with the Jaguar medicine. It's not just about having a sense of fearlessness in facing the unknown, because you have that sense of inner sovereignty that you understand, I am aligned with my core truth. And because of that sense of uprightness, there is no way that I can misstep. That's how one can move through the valley of the shadow and have no fear, when you know that you are walking in total alignment with your sense of inner stature here. That's what developing character is all about. This territory is about developing our character. So it will test. It will test how much you're really rooted in your truth, okay? This is coming in with the energies of Mars and Pluto, okay? Scorpio territory, right there. And also, it's the same energy that can bring on a tower if we don't go through this necessary purification with cat's claw. We have to be fearless in this territory. And there's only one way to become fearless. In order to become fearless, we have to be able to fully move into our heart space. Now, being able to move into your heart space requires a certain defenselessness. You have to be vulnerable. You can't be so harsh, so guarded. You can't be out there on the attack. That's going to have you get in a tower here. If you can't recognize you have a personal responsibility, accountability for the energy that you're bringing to the table, you're going to find this tough going. And because it is a matter of spiritual matters coming to the forefront here, spiritual cleansing is advised. And certainly if you are an alchemist, even more so. If you are someone who is actively working your path, if you are actively working with your shadowy material, transmuting that shit, letting it go, if you are actively working to refine the self, if you are going through that soul smithing, okay, this is even more important that you do your spiritual cleansing as well. If you are somebody who likes to do spiritual workings, now is the time to really purify your space. I've been slowly working at it, but I need to do more, and I'm going to be diving into that during this cycle myself, of really getting your altar space set up. If you have previous workings you've done and you have candle remnants or anything of this nature, it's time to clear that out properly. Also, just a good time to allow yourself, especially with it being a new moon in Scorpio, just cleanse yourself spiritually of the old cycle. You can do it with smoke cleansing, you can do it with cleansing baths, you can do it with meditations, right? There's no limit to the way you can work with this, but this is really important at this time because purification is the vehicle forward. It's coming in with that chariot energy here, okay? Right now we do have Jupiter in retrograde in the house of Cancer. It's going to remain in the house of Cancer as it goes through its retro motion. But this is us sort of getting a little bit of a review of what we do need to release, what we need to let go, what can't come forward with us, so that when it is time to start to really head forward in Sagittarian season with that Sagittarius new moon that comes in, then we will understand the appropriate way to do that. We can move forward cleanly, right? This is really important at this time. This is a time when there could be a storm too that comes in. This can be finally the emotions come up and out, and because they've been repressed so long, they can come with a lot of heat behind them. They can come with a lot of intensity, some of what rises to the surface, some of the truths that you finally admit to yourself or that others admit to you. They can be kind of explosive. They can be somewhat shocking. But whatever storms come in, they're meant to clear the air and recenter us in our core truth, get us back to that place of inner sovereignty, right? This is how we need to work with this energy. But do you see? It brings about the alignment, the beloved. As within, so without. We balance the masculine, the feminine polarities within the self, the active, the receptive qualities of the self, the ability to receive and the ability to give, okay? We first have to achieve this within ourselves. We have to bring about this purification, and if we do, we achieve the treasure of this miraculous chalice, or she of the Kruak comes within us, and we become the vessel that is poured into and overflows. We are nurtured even as we're able to nurture others. And this is a magic that remains within us, comes in with the energies of Pluto and Venus. It's the rebirth of the Venusian energy. And this is something that's really going to start to come to fulfillment in this cycle. It is what was promised with that Libra new moon that came in on October 21st, on the cusp of this season. Raven medicine here, all about magic, all about also understanding that sometimes you have to use your imagination to get through tricky territory, and that there's a way that you can use that imagination for the positive, so you can reclaim and harness the life-giving powers of the sun, where all things can grow and come to fruition, where you can build the light even as you're moving through some kind of tricky territory. And this is also when there's a lot of spiritual assistance coming in with these matters as well. And we can spot this assistance if we get ourselves aligned properly. But you're never going to be able to spot your synchronicities if your brain is hardwired for fear, doom, gloom, if you're totally tapped into the psyops, if your brain has become programmed by what's put out there by the media, or if you keep going over old ground, looking at what's happened to you before, and so you have the other shoe is going to drop syndrome, so you keep expecting more of the same, and then, whoa, it's so surprising when that's exactly what you get. You're misusing your imagination. Okay? So we really have to understand this. It's something that keeps coming forward. A repeat message, got strong Libra signature coming through here. This is the karmic balancing point. And when we get really in harmony within ourselves in this way, we draw others to us as well that harmonize with us. And so this is really also starting to recognize that if we want a different kind of quality of relationship connection, we first have to dress that within how we are connecting with ourselves, our own desires, our own visions for our future. And then we kind of gather the right team of star mates that join us on the campaign toward that stone of destiny as we continue to move forward toward that ring of fire in Aquarius on the 17th of February 2026. It's a beautiful energy. And this balance, it wants to come in. This alignment, it wants to come in. It's coming in with Damiana. Damiana is a courting energy. It's alluring. So as long as you are able to go into those places within yourself where you can get in touch with desire, your deepest soul's yearnings, that desire itself is the thing that's courting you, that's leading you toward the ultimate fulfillment of your destiny, your north node. But it requires focus. It's not just going to come out of thin air. There's also the need to apply oneself, right? You have to get aligned with that stream of consciousness, but then you also have to act in accord with that. You have to start to hardwire every action, every focal point with where you're going, what you're desiring to see come to pass. And once you do that, at first it's going to feel a little wonky. It's going to feel a little off. It's going to feel unfamiliar because you're not used to stepping forward that way. But the more you become aligned with that, the more you see your reality start to shift. And then you do really get it. Like, I am the creator. And I understand the frustration of that, because when you're unpacking a lot of foundational stuff that really did have you set up in such a way where you did view life as, you know, it's just one thing after another and I never get my break and I'm always going to be beset with these challenges. It's just the way it is. It's been like that my whole life. I mean, the more that we stay rooted in those kind of stories, the more we find the same. But when you start to disrupt that, right, you start to put your focus in a new direction, what is aligned with your true soul's essence, your purposeful desire, you will start to have those very things that are holding you back get louder. And that's why meditation is so helpful. That's why it requires a bit of that master maker energy. You have to master these lower impulses. You have to master the programming and understand that that's something you took on that was projected upon you through society, through your early childhood, through, you know, what was passed down to your parents too. It's just what they took on as well. And it goes back down through your bloodline, all the way back to your origin story at the dawn of time. This is stuff that's been set in motion for a long time. So it's not going to get cleared immediately. It requires a real harnessing of your energy, a focus, a determination, and to ask yourself, how much do you want to get free? I mean, that's what it really comes down to at the end of the day. This new moon, okay, came in conjunct Mercury, and it's linked to two long-term aspects that are going to be with us for the long haul. Jupiter trine Saturn, okay, and Uranus sextile Neptune. And Jupiter trine Saturn, it helps us embrace more optimism, okay? It does let us know that we can expand our territory here. We can see our visions come to fruition if we're willing to, you know, put some work in that direction, put our focus on lock in the correct way. And if we work with the energy differently than we have before, it does require us to have a little bit more discipline when it comes to our minds, rather than just letting them run amok and fixate on certain things or go back over the same, you know, sort of arguments we have with ourselves, or fixating on arguments we have with others. It requires a real reining in of those impulses to master our minds. And that's, you know, mindset is everything. If your mind is not focused in the correct way, then you can find the way tough going. Yes. And see, there's a lot that has been sacrificed. We've really sacrificed a lot in the name of love, even as we haven't been approaching our situations, our relationships, or even ourselves from a spirit of love. We've been moving from a place of fear. But we're learning about this, all right? We're cleansing away the bad blood here. We are pruning what no longer serves, and this is promoting new growth. It's going to allow new peace to come in here. Again, Venusian energy coming in with this new moon. We do have Venus in Scorpio right now. And especially as we're moving into this third decanate of Scorpio, oh man, there's a lot of action going on with Venus. We'll get there in a minute, okay? But you see, we're in this state. This is in process right now. I mean, we already know. We've been heading down that waterway. We've been going into that stream of consciousness where we're starting to go through a transformation. We're shape-shifting here. And with all the Neptunian energy that's at the forefront with that dragonfly medicine there, there's a lot of this sort of like dream time quality. It's the waking dream. We really do have the ability to focus our imagination in such a way that we can create manifestations. But that applies whether you're using your imagination to focus on something that is magical and wonderful and might be something you've never experienced before, but yet it excites you. It turns you on. It gets you feeling like you got those butterflies like fluttering in your heart space. And it's like, yeah, oh, that'd be so cool. You know, the things that you used to dream about. This is when you can dust off those dreams. But it can also be focused on your fears. And if you have a lot of secrets, right? If you have a lot of stuff that you haven't been willing to look at, then chances are your fears are the driving force in your life. And that's why it is so important to have this time of reflection. It is through doing this work and understanding that flow, right? That is the work with the Saturnian energy there hanging out with Neptune. We've been moving through that energy with Saturn in Pisces, and we do have Saturn retrograde right now. So this is really about understanding what has led to our disillusionment, what has led to the subconscious aspects having more free reign and being the driving force. and being willing to dredge that stuff up, open Pandora's box, and understanding that's where the light is. Sometimes it's scary to look at that stuff that we've hidden from ourselves. But again, coming in with 34/7, it is the chariot that leads us forward here. All right. So there is reason for optimism, because once we understand the work that needs to be done, there is the ability to move into expansion. And we know that this is all coming through recognizing that imagination is our superpower. And it can work for us or against us, but it's up to us. Nothing outside of us gets to dictate how we use our imagination. That's under our charge. So we should be the king or the queen of the fairies as we approach our domain and really consider, what do we want to fill this domain? What do we want to create in our kingdom? Because the kingdom's within us. And once we really discover that within us, we step into it in our outer reality. And it absolutely is possible in this particular climate. And when we're looking at Uranus sextile Neptune, we're looking at a landscape that we're moving through here that is very complex. It's mysterious. We also got all those planets in retrograde motion, okay? And with the sun and moon and Uranus operating here, you know, the sun and moon are opposite Uranus. We got a lot that's going on the tech angle here, especially in relation to questioning what is truly technological advance and what is perhaps regressive. What is truly progressive, and where there is progress in relation to technology, at what cost? And when we balance that out against the cost, is it truly progressive? That's how this Uranian energy sextile Neptune is really expressing itself at this time. It's like looking at the collective load of the technological advance. And also when we bring in that original Sabian symbol, bringing in the energy of the fairy, it's also looking at how is it affecting the earth? How is it affecting our environment? Can our environment support that? So we look at things like AI, and we look at things like data centers, and we look at all the energy and the resources they use. And then you have to really balance that out. Is that progress? So this is the kind of stuff we're looking at on a more macrocosmic level at this time, which makes sense because we have Pluto, you know, in Aquarius. So this energy, Uranus, is one of Aquarius's modern rulers, right? So, and Saturn as well is considered one of the old school rulers of Aquarius. So when we're looking at this energy rolling out right now, we're looking at the stuff that's foundational, that's been rumbling beneath the surface, that we haven't wanted to look at because maybe we've been really focused on progress, right? We've been tapped into more of this sort of matrix programming, but we're not understanding the collective load of that, the cost of that. Is it truly progress? So this is where we're looking at those issues of integrity, and we're really balancing that out and understanding our role, our place in that, and how are we playing our part in relation to these macrocosmic issues, because we do all hold our peace and we have to determine what our relationship is with all of that. So look for a lot more of this stuff to come to the surface as well during this cycle, understanding the ways that AI can be considered an advancement, but also seeing direct result of how it is causing some kind of regression as well. Understanding that in terms of the cost to the environment and the collective vision as a whole. All right. 4412 on the clock. I mean, there's some stuff we're balancing out there karmically. There's some lessons we need to learn from the past. And I always go back to Atlantis with that, you know. There have been times when we desired such advancement in the past and it was our undoing, and we're being presented with these same tests again. But first, we have to understand that within the own microcosm of our personal experience and our relationship to that before there can be any kind of change in collective consciousness, because each of us, though we are separate physical entities, right? We all are a piece of that overall collective consciousness. So the more lights that come on in the room, the more we see change in this regard. And then finally, we got some fixed stars that are in play at this time. And those fixed stars are Ptolemy, Alcyone, and Shed. And it really does live up to its name. These stars bring in more of an occult influence, so do look for more sort of suspicion, more energy out there where you feel like manipulation's at play, or there's some subversion running the script, and maybe some spiritual work being thrown around. It's also a very accident-prone landscape, and some of these accidents can involve water specifically, and it's very combative, aggressive influence, and a lot of this trouble can come from women, I have to tell you, with these fixed stars. So this is when you can see the feminine behaving badly, okay, causing some problems. This is also when a lot of the harmful behaviors can be inflicted upon the self-injury, self-harm, and also addictive behaviors that are harmful to the self. So these are all themes that are at the forefront here. And I'm going to go ahead and do one more round of this just to get the overarching energy. And then I'm bringing in the angels and imps as we get kind of like a little read of the energies. It's connected with each of the deacons. Even though we've already passed through the first and second deacons of Scorpio, it makes no difference. Those energies, just like the third decanate Libra energy, is still running through this current and will be all the way up until that time of the Aquarian Ring of Fire. So it's important to understand the territory we've been moving through so we know where we're going. Yes, and what's the purpose of it all? Well, the crossing energy, we got ashwagandha there. Look at that, the solar lunar energy balancing out that sun-moon synergy. Again, the moon is wanting to be expressed through your sun. In other words, it's time to bring your lunar energy up to the surface and let it shine outward here. This is a really potent energy that can help to align us with that north node, because a lot of times our lunar sign really does represent that soulful aspect of ourselves that is very intimate. And maybe it's the part of us that we don't normally show other people, but it's really wanting to be externalized. See, we got that north node energy coming in with this new moon energy here. And again, it's about rising up. Isn't that interesting? Because we opened up with the 9 energy signature of Virgo, the Hermit in the south node there. And we got it up right now, 9, okay? This is the change that's needed for us to come into alignment in a powerful way, also within ourselves, to be energetically on board so we can really move forward with a sense of purpose here, right? So there's something really that is going to come into view for us at this time, but it does require us to turn this energy around. We have to be willing to come to a state of inner peace before we ever expect we're going to find it externally. And that's really the challenge during this time, all right? So make sure that you're being very conscious of your own behaviors, where you're at, what you're feeling, and make sure you're being mindful at this time for there to be this propensity to feed the fears also to dive too much into suspicion and for that to become a very manipulative way of getting us into some trouble here. You know, there's ways that we can be seduced to act more out of our lower natures, and we need to be aware of really balancing this out. One of the best ways to do that is to get the lunar quality up toward the surface. Well, when we look at that lunar essence, it also deals with our subconscious. So it's really making the subconscious conscious, and that's what's needed to spark this change and get us moving forward in a very empowering way. Okay. All right, this looks pretty good. Looks pretty good here. I'm going to do a cut of the deck. Yes, we have to understand right now we are a conduit. I love how the fairy energy is really forward in this card here. We are a conduit. So there's a lot of communication coming through at this time. I mean, with the energy of Mercury coming in here, it's a Cazimi that's activated. So this energy is really allowing, with Pluto and Mercury coming in here, it's allowing us to take that material, that subconscious material, or what normally is bobbing beneath the surface, and we're able to bring it up to the surface to understand what it has to communicate to us. And that's what allows us to build the future in a new way from the inside out. Because once we understand what's been kind of communicating beneath the surface, it all of a sudden moves us into more of a position of power, because now we have something to work with. Okay, I understand. This is what's been leading to some of the behaviors I've been engaged in that cause harm to myself. And then in turn create, you know, situations where others can get hurt too. And we start to have more responsibility for that energy that we are conducting. We understand I'm a real conduit here, because our environment starts to prove it to us. It starts calling the things that we're fixated on to us. And we're going to see this really amplified during this time. So really be mindful of your thoughts, because it's kind of like a psychedelic atmosphere, man. It is. You're really going to see that you don't need to go on a trip to make this happen. There's going to be these blurring of lines between what's considered the spiritual realm and day-to-day reality. They're really fusing together at this time. Why? Not because it hasn't been that way before. It's always been that way, but it's the consciousness is expanding in such a way, on such a collective level, that it's able to recognize it. People are starting to see beyond the illusion. They're seeing beyond the structure of the programming. And that's when we head into that sort of mutable state and everything dissolves and we're like, whoa, what am I working with here? And that's why it's so important to harness the focus of the mind through the creative brain space, so you don't have your fears run away from you, because that's what it feels like at first. It's a little bit of a destabilizing influence. Okay, meditation is so helpful, especially in nature. All right. And yes, that Chiron energy, we've been moving through that energy. We're really going to see a transformation point with that, of the healing work we've done, of the deepest wound of the self, and the blessings that come through that, the light that comes through the wound when we get to that Sagittarius new moon on the 19th. Right? This is when we're really grokking the lessons of the wounded healer. And it's healer, heal thyself. You got to start with you before you expect your life to heal or your relationships with others to heal. 53:44 on the clock, 8:44, double 8, 16. There's that tower, that awakening moment. Oh, I had the power all along. And that's what creates the vehicle that moves us forward here. This also coming in with 53, 8, really strong number. 888, synchronicity to look out for here. That lets you know that your healing is imminent, that you're coming into recognition of the power that you hold. And that is really what's going to free you from the crossroads and get so much moving in the right direction. Okay. Now we're going to just do a review here and a reading. I got the angels and imps totally divided here because I've been working with them separately, but now we're going to get them all mixed up. Page of Wands on the bottom of the deck, Sagittarian energy, lighting things up, coming in with a message here, how we can lift up the consciousness, have a brighter view of the way forward, how we can finally take an action that moves us into that expansion we want to move into by being a propagator of the light instead of staying fixated on the shadow. This is what's going to confound the wicked and those who slander, and will save us from the enemies, even the enemies we have hiding out in our own consciousness, okay, through making it consciousness. And this is when we hit the alchemical point with that energy of Taurus that was ushered in with that full moon that we had. Queen of Pentacles coming in here makes one wise and teaches everything, can turn any metal into gold, transmutes water into wine, all right? So yes, we have to recognize that we hold that power, that we are the creator of our kingdom, and our imagination is our superpower. This is how we can build the light. Okay, Scorpio Decan 1 runs October 23rd to November 1st. If you are born in the Decans that I am mentioning, you will definitely be feeling this energy. You probably, if you are a third decanate Libra, you are feeling the energy of that Scorpio first decan because of the new moon that your decanate ushered in right there on the cusp. So Libra new moon strongly influenced the first decanate of Scorpio, which runs October 23rd through November 1st. And the energy came in very strongly and will continue to be a focus for quite some time to come. And I say that because Pluto is square the first decan of Scorpio, and that started in 2024 and will not be wrapped up until 2030. All right. So we know that what keeps us in a box is what we don't make conscious. That is the sabotaging influence. Those parts of us that we keep under wraps, the stuff that we're not willing to look at, the stuff we sweep under the rug. This Pandora's box is what keeps the light from coming into view in our life. So this remains challenging territory. We have to be willing to look at that stuff if we hope to get out of the box. If we hope to have more freedom in our lives, if we hope to experience that sense of liberation, if we hope to be able to actualize those things we dream of, we have to be willing to open up Pandora's box. That's how the light gets through. You have to go poking around in your deepest wound. That's how you heal yourself. You have to look at those things that you've been afraid to look at, or maybe you're just tired of feeling it, or whatever it is. But if it's still sitting there, you know, bumping around in your root cellar, it's not complete. And there's still something that needs acknowledgement there. So again, spiritual cleansing, allowing yourself to feel what you feel, but at the same time, being gently disciplined with yourself, where you recognize when you've brooded on something long enough and it's time to really own your part in it. And instead of thinking about what others have done to you, recognize the role you've played and how you can take your power back by no longer feeding energy, focusing on the actions of others, and more understanding the wounding from the angle of what can I do to take back the authority in my life, instead of constantly reflecting on how others have hurt me. Can I acknowledge ways that shadowy aspects of myself allowed that to happen? How I ignored my intuition perhaps when I knew something didn't feel right, or where I was afraid to speak up for myself because I thought I would be judged, or I didn't have the confidence. So this is when it's not about shaming yourself, but acknowledging the role that you played in those dynamics. That's what really frees you from the box. See, because as soon as you start taking personal responsibility for your part in those situations, even if, you know, people did things to you that were egregious, and you don't have control over how others treat you, but you do have control over how you receive it, what you do with that material, and the changes you make in your life as a result, okay? This is really going to be a time that's going to test your character and your endurance. And this is for everybody, okay? Especially for those of you in the first decanate of Scorpio, also third decanate, Libras. I think that you're wrapping up this territory, but you're still feeling the influence of this, doing the last little bit of work around these matters. If you have strong Scorpio placements in general, you're feeling this, but this energy is really testing your character and your endurance. This is when you're asking yourself, like, are we there yet? Like, when is it enough? And this is why it's so important to focus on what your soul's deepest yearnings are, because it can feel like a test of your character, and it can feel like an unfair lot in life if you're not properly aligned with your deepest soul's yearnings, you know? If you're making space and room for really intractable people, situations, and or things that you're just going along with out of a sense of obligation, rather than really being aligned with what feels right to your heart, well, it's going to be nothing but drudgery, man, okay? So this is when you really have to make sure that you're in that place of inner sovereignty. Is this what you want to come to pass in your kingdom? Is this really what you want to create? Because you're only going to be willing to go through the tests of character and have the endurance if you're properly aligned, okay? Very important. There's going to be a lot of power struggles to make goals come into being, and that's why you have to make sure you're properly aligned, because there will be opposition to your desires. It can make your success seem elusive. And there will be need at certain points to release control and put all of the onus on your hard work, your determination, and your sense of ambition. So can you see how if you're not properly aligned, it's going to make it impossible to see progress, right? That's why you have to start using your imagination to dream up what you really want to bring in and let that be your focus, because then you'll start seeing new opportunities. What you're focused on gathers momentum. What you're focused on will start to influence your outer reality. The more you stay fixated there on your true desires, the more you're going to start to see opportunities to head in that territory come into view, all right? So it's not about ignoring what's been going on in the root cellar, but it is about facing it squarely, knowing when enough processing is enough, doing your purification, and then getting your mind right, fixated on what really is in alignment with your desire, so you can start putting your energy there, because that's the only thing that's going to get you out of the box. Otherwise, you'll fold every time. It will feel very defeatist, and before you know it, you just give up on yourself. You give up on your dreams. You got to make sure that you're willing to be tested, you know? It's a testing territory, so be prepared for this, collective. Also, Venus was square Pluto November 6th to 9th in the first decanate, okay? So this is where you really recognized what was unhealthy. What were those unconscious aspects of the way you related to others? The way that you were able to spot the beauty in your life, where you were more focused or fixated on the shadow, or where there were destructive qualities, unconscious aspects as the driving force in your relationships. The heavy territory, you know what I mean? It's where you were dancing with the devil and really looking at what undermined your relationships, or maybe hidden aspects to your relationships that you were afraid to look at. unhealthy aspects, and also maybe dealing with some endings, you know, endings in relationships, endings within yourself, the way you are going to move forward in terms of the way you relate to others as well. So that's when we were really moving through a lot of heavy territory in relation to all things Venusian. But we also have to remember with Venus, it's not just about love, but open enemies. Also looking at where your anger, where your frustration with others, where your arguments with others, where you've been at odds with others, or where others' desires have run counter to your own desires, have put you in a box and held you up. A lot of it related to the inability to relinquish control, to go with the flow, and to put your focus on what is independent of your challenges with others, where you do have a say about how you direct your course, okay? So important to come into that personal place of empowerment at this time. Don't make your goals be about other people. Let them be about your soul's calling. First decanate of Scorpio also had Mercury conjunct Mars, November 10th through 14th. This also influenced the second decanate of Scorpio. This is when we became more alert. This is when we were able to become more direct. And it also gave us the ability to be more convincing. Why? Because we had the clarity. We were able to spot things we weren't able to see before. This allowed us to see more direct route to get where we needed to go. Also gave us the ability to communicate more directly, more convincingly as well. Having the gift of gab, you could say, knowing how to deliver a message in the right way to drive a point home, but also to sort of, you know, make people aware. This is what's up. This is where I'm at. Also for you to be more aware where others were at too, okay? To be more alert of the communication coming through in the subtext, you know? What's not being said, but being able to pick up the communication clues through other sources. Some of it your intuition, right? This is when things became a lot more clear, a lot more direct. And where you also became more convincing because you were able to really align with that clarity. This new moon is semi-sextile, the first decan. And this is basically talking about starting to see some improvement, starting to see some progress. It will be slow and steady advancement toward those long-term goals once you get yourself really aligned with where you're going. That's why this is so important to get on board with what your true desire is at this time, because the more that you do become aligned in that way, the more you're going to start to see progress. It's not going to be by leaps and bounds at this time, but it's going to be movement, and that's positive, okay? Any movement is good movement, especially when it's progression, okay? So this is positive. So let's have a look at this here, all right? Let's see what is coming in here in relation to these aspects that we brought in. Well, we got the Hierophant here, all right? We know with Taurus hosting that energy of Uranus, this is when unexpected things can come our way. And if you aren't properly aligned, naturally, that could rattle you a bit, right? But if you are very much aligned with where you want to go and you know it's on point and you're keeping your focus there, you'll have the endurance and the character, the strength of character to be able to weather those changes. There's also the desire here, I see, to find forgiveness. Some people are really wanting to experience healing in connections. They're wanting to get beyond some previous challenges. They're hoping to secure promise of future unfoldment in the future, especially in relation to those matters of the heart. There can be a sense that some people feel like you're the key to their freedom in some respects. Like, until I iron out this issue with you, or you may feel this about another, until I've squared this away, I really do feel like I am being held back. And maybe there's a way to work through these challenges. We got the fixed signs coming through on this card in relation to this. So we got Taurus there, Leo, Scorpio, you're in the mix there, also Aquarius, okay? Again, I have to say, when we look at the Hierophant, though, the Hierophant is really talking about outside authority. And this is a way that we can kind of shirk our responsibility. So this is really about getting straight with yourself first. And maybe you need to forgive yourself before you even think about the other, you know? Before you put that key in another person's hand, understand you are the key. You are the key to creating the kind of kingdom you really want to embody and you want to step into here. All right? So grant yourself that inner authority. You don't need an intermediary. And once you recognize that, then you may be in the position where once you're in this place of alignment, you may find that you're able to secure new promises for your future with others and have healing come about in your relationships with others because you've restored that for yourself internally, right? This is really key with this energy here. You may have people come at you at this time that are wanting to work through their challenges. It's going to be up to you to really recognize, you know, has this person done the work? Or are they still operating from the same place? And it brings a challenge to you too, because it requires you to be aware of your subconscious influences. Are red flags going off for you? Are you seeing warning signs? Is your intuition saying, no, I'm not feeling resonance here. This doesn't feel right. Or is there something fluttering in your heart there that's like, you know what, I really do want to heal this connection, but maybe you recognize you're afraid. Okay, it's really about recognizing no matter what you're dealing with in relation to anybody wanting to heal a connection with you, or whether you're wanting to heal a connection with another, it starts with you. You have to look at where you're at, be honest with what you're experiencing there, and use those tools to communicate clearly about what's coming up for you. And when you do that, you can create a convincing sort of framework for how to rebuild a connection if that's what you desire. But it also depends on where the other's at. Okay? Because we got the 8 of Swords here on the other side, and that's pretty wild. On this side, we have the Empress. Okay? So it's about self-knowledge. It takes self-knowledge to make the garden grow. You know what I'm saying? It takes self-knowledge when we're looking at this rebirth of Venus energy to move into that state where we make our garden grow. We have to be focused in such a way that we have the self-knowledge that it is up to us, being in touch with our true desires, to have a sense of purpose that drives us, to understand that things won't always be easy. There will be tests to our character, which is why it's so important that we're properly aligned. But if we're able to move in this way, we can get to the other side. We will experience growth, and that growth will spread out into our material reality. We will start to see the birth of a lot of new beginnings in our lives. And in terms of relating to the others, we can create a sense of healing. Isn't this beautiful? Because the Queen of Pentacles comes out again here. It comes through intellectual lucidity. It comes through having a sense of awareness, through making the unconscious conscious. And this is what will provide consolation and compensation for any missteps we've had back there. We have to have learned the lesson, all right? And that's about not giving that authority away to anyone else, not needing an intermediary, understanding you have a direct connection to source. That's your intuition. And you have it. It's there. You just need to listen to it and trust what you are feeling. And if you do feel too much fear and you're like, well, I'm not sure if that's just fear or if that's my intuition, well, that's communication right there. And that's ownership. I feel afraid. And you can communicate clearly about that. I feel afraid. I feel anxious. I don't feel like I'm ready to work through this with you. That's the start. Oh, it's scary to say that, right? It's vulnerable, but that's powerful. And it's no bullshit, you see? And that's what's needed. That's what's needed to really transform your relationships. It's also what's needed to get clear, get straight with yourself and understand what you're generating here. Yes, to make those subconscious aspects, those sabotaging aspects conscious. That is the true victory here. Because then you're not a pawn in the game anymore. That's the checkmate moment. All right? But it does require us to get out of the ego a little bit. And when I say ego, I'm not talking about a healthy sense of ego. You need a healthy sense of ego to be able to function in material reality. Don't let anybody tell you you don't. Because if you don't have a healthy sense of ego in play, you're just going to be walking around, you know, like a zombie. You're not going to be able to function. You'll be completely out to lunch. You'll be wandering off into the alfalfa and you won't be able to ground anything in material reality. So you need to have an ego intact, okay? But dysfunctional ego is when you're in too much of a prideful position where you can't see the forest for the trees, all right? So this is what needs to be cut off. There needs to be an understanding that the only thing that's holding me back, the only blocks I have in place here is my own perception of the situation and the aspects of myself that I'm not willing to look at that are holding me back. Once you see this, you have truth, you have justice, you come into that place of inner sovereignty. And this is what protects you from enemies, okay? Because if anybody does come towards you with ill will, well, you're going to spot it from a mile away. Why? Because you trust. You trust your own inner compass. And you're going to be true to that. And that's what's going to keep you on track here, right? It's not going to allow anybody to steal your fortune because you're not even creating the opportunity to put that in their hands. You recognize you create that. So you make the calls. You choose what you align with. You choose who you resonate with. Don't blame it on anybody else. Everybody who's had a negative experience with somebody can spot the point when you recognize something wasn't right and you ignored your own counsel and you chose to sweep it under the rug. If you're really honest with yourself, you have to understand that you did that. And you may wonder, why did I do that? Well, because you had to learn a lesson through that person. They did serve a purpose after all, okay? But it looks like this energy is really going through a state of transmutation. I like that we got the Empress coming out here. It shows that you are activating that self-knowledge. You are stepping into your power. You are willing to take a look at things. Even though you may recognize like, ooh, I really lost the plot back there, okay? And there's some kind of compensation that comes through the willingness to make that acknowledgement that finally gets you free of something that's held you back too long and you become your own inner authority. You don't give your power away anymore. And that's when you forgive yourself for not trusting yourself. That's when you forgive yourself for not being true to yourself. That's when you forgive yourself for not walking your talk, right? And that's when you can forgive others too, right? Even if it just means just letting go. Even if it just means letting go. Some of you may heal relationships. I mean, it is coming through here. But it's not something that happens overnight. Remember, this is stuff that slow, steady progress is what's going to get you there, right? Nothing impulsive or dramatic. But this looks good, right? This looks like a positive energy. Okay, so Decanate 2 for Scorpio is November 2nd through November 11th. And you really ushered in that energy of the full moon in Taurus. It was opposite your Decanate. So you've really felt it strongly. You most strongly have been feeling the effects of that Taurus full moon, the 11th through the 20th. And what really got stoked for you during this time was a real strong burning desire to reach your goals. And yet recognizing that you were dealing with situations that were really at odds with your goals, and that these things were holding you back, where you felt like in some cases you were banging your head against a shut door and you're like, how am I going to get this door to open? And some of that is related to being too stubborn in your pursuit of a goal, to only have it manifest in a particular way. And there's a need to balance things out a little bit, get a little recalibrated, go a little bit more into the heart space, understand what's your real driving force. Maybe ask yourself again, is this truly my goal? Is this truly my deepest soul's longing? Or is there perhaps a more superficial reason why I wanted to achieve this? Really be honest with yourself, okay? And if you do determine like, yes, this is truly my soul's deepest desire, remember, let it be a goal that's not about another here. Let it be something you want to achieve for yourself. Then it may be about approaching it in a more balanced way. Maybe you were going at it too hard, too driven, too fast. Maybe you need to really lay down a solid foundation for those goals. Maybe you need to approach it in more of a balanced way that gives you time for rest and integration as well. Maybe your goal does involve other people just by proxy. There's other people that are going to come into play, or there's people who have opposition to your goals for one reason or another. They don't agree with it. Maybe these are people you have to work with. You don't have a choice about that. Well, then you're going to have to find a way to compromise, right? Compromise. But with the sun conjunct Mercury here on this day of the new moon, this will bring a lot of clarity to the table. It will allow you to sort things out, to be able to think things through, and to streamline things before you put them out there, before you communicate to others. It's also a wonderful time to set a new plan in motion, to brainstorm, to put it on paper, to write it out. Great time to do journaling if you're trying to get clear on what am I really feeling here, or what do I really desire. A journal can be your ally. Anything that requires mental brain work is favored at this time as a clarifying influence. And this will continue into the third decanate of Scorpio as well. So this energy is here for the long haul to December 19th. So this is good, you know. Where we haven't been clear about things, or we haven't known how to communicate what we're feeling, or how to deliver our message so we can achieve our objective. This is when we can start to really set some positive things in motion. It's also when we can start laying some plans down. And it might be good to get a little bit more structured with that, rather than just letting it hang out in the sort of dreamy space where it can get sort of washed out to sea, all right? Anchor it a little bit, bring it into form, write it out, put it on paper, write out your mission statement, and you'll find a lot of beneficial support in this regard. All right, let me see any more details that want to come in around that energy there, about clarity coming in, having more clear thoughts coming across, the perfect solution, the brilliant idea. See, that's the thing. If you can center the mind, if you can get focused and aligned with your appropriate desires, that can do a lot to calm the mind too. You calm the mind, you can think more clearly, you can see things more clearly, you can communicate more clearly, you can see a more clear route to get where you want to go, right? So this is real important influence coming in here, and see what these cards want to contribute to that discussion, how we can navigate what may be at odds with where we want to go. And here come all the imps out here. Those tricky little details, the devil's in the details. Let's see what's on the bottom of the deck here. Knight of Swords. Well, I like this, okay? Because This is the ability to finally be decisive about what needs to be done to move forward, what needs to be cut off, what needs to be communicated to move forward cleanly, okay? And it's coming from that place of the Jaguar medicine, that place of inner sovereignty, being in integrity, being able to move forward fearlessly in the face of the unknown because you're right within. You're upright within. So that makes things a lot easier when you're navigating the territory. It says it will destroy and burn all enemies when requested, speaks of the creation of the world, tells of the past and future. So yeah, this is about going through that fire test of truth and transformation. It's about offering up to the pyre those places inside of you that are your inner saboteurs. Maybe you need to call them out. That would be a great way to work with this Sun conjunct Mercury energy right now. Write it out. Make a list tonight as you're doing this sort of meditative work and getting clear on where you're at and getting in touch with your deepest desires. What is the spirit of your saboteurs? Call them out. The spirit of the thing. List those saboteurs. Write them down. Make a list. Call them out. The spirit of the thing that is your saboteur. And it can be, you know, the spirit of laziness is one of your saboteurs. The spirit of procrastination. You know, call them out. Label them. This is important. Because then you're making it conscious and you're owning it. Those are things you're in charge of, right? And that can help you purify what's been holding you back. A lot of what's related to the stories we tell ourselves about what outside of us is blocking our progress in the world, what's operating at odds here. That's a way we can create transmutation in the enemy, okay? And if it is somebody outside of us that's been making things complicated, if we can look at the ways that we're sabotaging ourselves, maybe even by fixating on that too much, you could say that. Fixating on those who are working against me can be a spirit of the thing. That can be a sabotaging influence. The more that you can really put the reins back in your hands, okay? That's what's going to change the landscape here. And it's what's going to allow you to close out the old cycle, let the wheel turn again, and create the world as you want to see it by opening the road. And how are you opening the road? In your consciousness. By getting all of everybody else's opinions, ideas, suggestions, advice, all that out of your head, and really recognizing it's about your view of how you want to use your creative energy for your future. And trust that proper alignment comes. Trust you'll be guided in relation to others along the way. But you got to get yourself right first before you can get right with others. All right? I like this though. It's like, it's very decisive energy. So let's see what you're being decisive about, because we got a crossing energy here. And this is something that needs to be looked at. Oof, yeah, the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords, a real fixation on how things ended back there. There's so much focus on this. And this is what's going to build your tower. This is what's going to bring about a tower. You know? This is really being focused on what was done to you, rather than understanding how you can destroy the power the perceived enemy has had over you simply by getting in touch with the way your fixation on that imbues their thoughts with power. Do you understand? They only have the power to destroy you if you are giving them that power. You're making them an intermediary to your freedom. You're giving the key to them. They hold full possession of your attention, your focus. But instead, if you can understand, it's through my fixation on what they did to me and putting my intention there that I am using my imagination in a distorted way. And so I'm creating more conflict for myself, more roadblocks for myself, more losses for myself. I need to remember every time I start telling myself that sob story where I was done wrong, that I have imagination as my superpower, and right now I'm using the power in a distorted way. It's going to bring me a tower, and it will continue to bring me a tower until I correct it and start using my imagination in a way where I'm wielding it wisely, focused intently on only what I want to see come to pass in my life. And the more that you do this, the more your desires will draw towards you. The more your paths of synchronicity will align, that puts you on the path that is the clearest, most direct route to get where you need to go. And it will bring good familiars your way. It will bring alignment with people who will take you further down that path, that are meant to share in that journey with you. And it will just let all those shadows of the past fall away. Now, what's the crossing energy here? Here comes Apophis. Yeah, the Two of Wands. You're letting Apophis block the route to your sun. You're letting Apophis hold you back from the Ragnarok. You're not allowing the chariot to move forward, right? So this is really about understanding what is truly holding you back. And in this way, you build the light, and the sun cannot be stolen from you. It will make you intelligent and bold. And sometimes, you know, moving in a new way and moving outside the box that you used to operate from, where it was all about what other people were doing to you, and if this person wouldn't have done that, then I would have been able to do this, and they're the reason the relationship went south, and all that crap, okay? Where you really recognize that that's the very thing that's holding you back, is your fixation on that. That's one of the boldest moves you can make, because it changes everything. Then you really are stepping into your personal empowerment. And you're recognizing that every time you go back there in your consciousness, that you are using your power in a distorted way. You are using your imagination to call your fears to you. You are using your imagination to call the shadow to you. That's when you can start to exorcise the spirit of those things. Purify that. Let that shit go. And you can start to see your sun come into view. And once you see it come into view, if you stay fixated on that, it's just going to grow brighter and brighter and brighter. And you know, all those shadows are going to fall away. They're going to be behind you. Right? That's a good energy. I like that. I like that. All right. Very positive energy there, okay? So that leads us to the third decanate of Scorpio, which runs November 12th through 21st and will be most strongly felt leading up to that new moon in Sagittarius on December 19th. But please remember, this energy, all this energy is along for the ride, just because of the nature of what's rolling out here, and the fact that we got Pluto in Aquarius and that ring of fire coming up on the 17th of February, all right? So this energy, all this energy, Scorpionic energy, all that Libra energy that came in, all of that got kicked off with the Virgo new moon, going back there, all of that, and the full moon that came in Pisces earlier in September before that eclipse, new moon in Virgo, all of that is going to loop back around when we arrive at that ring of fire. But it's going to be the culmination point of what's on the other side of that. Because I hope by then you've wrapped that up and you're ready to step into your destiny, okay? So the third decanate of Scorpio runs November 12th through the 21st. And one of the big influences coming in with this decanate is Sun opposite Uranus. This is already something that got ushered in on the 19th, but you will feel it most acutely through the 22nd. And this can be the call to adventure. This can be when you start to feel a little bit more impulsivity, but it's because you're daring to dream. You're recognizing that where it's at is not enough, or there's something more you're wanting to experience. This is when you're feeling the call of the Fool rising you to unfamiliar paths. This is when you're not as afraid to head into unknown territory because of what you know currently. Like, how bad could the unknown be? I mean, I know what I know. Maybe it's not so bad to move into the unknown. Maybe it's worth some risk, okay? So this is a positive energy. It is when you are willing, you know, to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And that's what's needed at this time. You also got, during the same time frame, kicked off on the 19th, will be felt most acutely to the 22nd, but really going to be experiencing this all the way up to that new moon in Sag. You had the Sun trine Neptune, okay? So this is absolutely where you are willing to dream bigger, bolder. Maybe you recognize that a dream you used to have was playing too small, or it can't ever live up to what you want it to be. This is when you're willing to dream a new dream. And this is also a time when you're going to recognize that what's really needed for your success is to believe in yourself and to trust your intuition, which is best responded to spontaneously in the moment. And you're not really able to do that if you're too focused on the past or if you're too worried about the future. You can only really respond spontaneously and potently from the present, right? So that's why it's so important to bring the focus to the present moment, because that's where your imagination has the most potency and where you have the most ability to create transformation by making sure that what you're dreaming up now is truly in alignment with your truest, most deepest yearnings and desires, which may be very different now than they were before after moving through all the heavy territory we've been through. We have to remember that we got a lot of stuff looping back around from 2018 that we're revisiting. So you've covered a lot of ground during that time, and the dream you had back then may not be the dream you have now. It could be the dream you have now, and if it is, you might see need for revision, okay? There's a real need, though, to trust your own intuition in regard to this, though. So looking to other people for the answers is not where it's at. It's about trusting your inner authority. I'll say it again. I know everybody loves this Hierophant card, but this Hierophant is about outside authorities acting as the intermediary between you and spirit. And did you ever think that the keys there that lay before the Hierophant in the traditional Rider-Waite tarot, the two figures kneeled before it wanting their freedom, did you ever think that maybe it's letting you know that the real key there to access those gifts, because the keys are always crossed like the rune Gabo, which is about gifts, spiritual gifts, the gifts you hold. They require you recognizing that you don't need that outside authority. It's all in you. We also look at the Hierophant as government institutions, and it's like the man. So I've never really understood why people view it as such like a lofty card, because I really view it as a card of outside authority and the need to recognize the inner authority one holds. All right, that's your key to success. It really is. So tune into that. This new moon is totally aligned with, of course, this third decan, and this in some ways mirrors that third decanate of Libra that came into play as well, because it is a connecting point energy. This is a time where there's a lot going on with Venus as well, which is why it so strongly brings in that Libran charge that came in with that new moon. Again, third decanate Librans, you're probably feeling a lot of this pretty intensely, as well as everybody who has a strong Venus placement. Okay, so if you got Venus in Libra or Taurus, you're probably really feeling this. If you are a Libran or a Taurus, or have a real strong Libra Taurus placement within, you know, the top three, your sun, your rising, your moon, you're definitely feeling this. Also, if you have Venus in the 7th house of Libra, or Venus in the 2nd house of Taurus, you're probably really feeling this strongly. Venus in the 12th house, you're probably feeling this strongly too, because that's an intense energy for Venus. They call that Venus rising, right? So clue into that energy. There's a lot going on with Venus right now. The 23rd through the 26th, we got Mercury conjunct Venus. All right, so this is when a lot is surfacing in relation to our heartfelt communication. We know in this Scorpio territory that first there's the subconscious parts of ourselves, or those feelings we weren't willing to admit to ourselves. Those things are starting to bubble to the surface. And we're also getting really clear about what our heart is communicating to us. So this is coming on board the 23rd through the 26th. During this time, because we got Venus in Scorpio, we have to remember that. Venus has been moving through all of these decanates, okay? And is still moving through this energy. So we got that Mars energy right there, which is also a ruler of Aries, which is Libra's descendant sign. And then in addition to that, we also have, you know, the energy of Pluto there. So we're dealing with what's been operating beneath the surface, what is unconscious, the roots of our situations, and all of that 8th house stuff intermingled there. And of course, we got to look at the energy of the tower. It's all indicative there. So this is really electrifying Venusian territory, which is appropriate, I have to say, because if you've ever looked at what the territory is like on the planet Venus, there's a big like electric charge there. It's not the most hospitable planet. It is quite sulfuric. It's very fitting. But yeah, this is some heavy hitter energy, and this energy goes way back too, back to the tail end of you know, 2008, 2009. That's when third decanate Libra started really moving into that Plutonian territory. So this is a huge cycle coming to a head here for the rebirth of Venus. The 24th through the 28th, Venus trine Jupiter. This is a positive energy, okay? So as we're starting to really get in touch with what our heart is communicating to us, and we're looking at the subconscious stuff that we weren't willing to look at before, and we're bringing it into the light, we're starting to realize the gift that's there. And this is also giving us an ability to reclaim some of the beauty that's been lost. It's an opportunity to see how the beauty got through what wounded us in the past. It's really taking on that lesson of the deepest wound of the self that Aries and Chiron brought us, and recognizing that, wow, if I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be able to pluck this diamond from the void. There's a beautiful gift that can come through this. There's also a reason for us to feel more optimistic about the future. We can see a way that we can step into greater expansion now that wasn't possible before, because we didn't have the freedom in our mind that would even allow us to step into what's possible now. So this is where we're really recognizing the growth that's come through this cycle, the gifts that it's brought, and we're feeling a healthy sense of pride around that. We're starting to feel more hopeful about what is possible for us in our future. 25th through the 28th of November, we got Venus trine Saturn in the third decanate of Scorpio. So this is also where we understand the work that needs to be done, and we do it joyously because we recognize the gift that it is, the gift that it brings into our lives that it's worth the investment. Our heart's on board. We are aligned. We're recognizing the challenges and the strengths they embodied us with. And so this allows us to move forward in a whole new way. Now, we enter into a pretty interesting time where this is tested on the 28th through the 1st. And I say that because we got Venus opposite Uranus in the 3rd decanate of Scorpio coming in then, and Venus trine Neptune, right? So this means your dreams really can be a reality. What you want to see come into view that's in alignment with your deepest yearnings and desires may actually start to appear on the horizon there. You see the first inkling of it. It comes in as a shock to you. Now, when this shock comes in, it also can create that destabilization. This is when you can be alerted to some of the last remnants of those impious characters hiding out in your subconscious that are your inner saboteurs, the spirit of the thing that you've taken on that can hold you back, that can give you every reason, every argument for why you need to go and get back in the box, because the box is safe and this isn't safe, because, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to dare to dream. But when your dream actually comes into view and you recognize the adventure that's on deck, the thrilling road, the thrilling ride that's on offer, and all it's going to take to step into that and the unknown territory you're moving in, it can scare the shit out of you. And then you can go right back to calling your fears to you. Okay, so this is a real opportunity here, but it's also a challenge. Right? So this is where you're really going to have the mindset right. But do you see? Emperor, bottom of the deck. Do you see? Look at this. Empress to Emperor. The beloved energy. This is where we can get it right within, and we can step into that worldly power in our material reality, right? It's all about the uses of power. We have to use our power from a self-aware place, right? This is stepping into the position of authority in our life, not handing the reins over to another, recognizing, no, I hold this power and I have the self-knowledge, the intuitive awareness, the heart fire, the true desire, the sense of purpose that I can hold this. I can hold this power. And this is what's going to give you safety to travel up to the North Node without getting mired in any of the conspiracy theories that the saboteurs want to spin to tell you what's going to work against you, or buying into the programming of the algorithm or the purveyors of doom on the nightly news. This is when you take back the authority in your life and you actually see what's possible when you can act out of that place of self-knowledge. It's true empowerment. It does require you to be aware of the subconscious influences that sabotage you. I'm not going to tell you to focus on who's been working against you, because it doesn't even matter. It's all about where you focus your awareness. Remember that plan that you're going to put into play, your strategy for how you move forward. Your focus, you need to stay on lock rather than be distracted by what somebody else is doing. You got to keep the focus here. And everything else will come into proper alignment for you with the Page of Swords here. This is what governs your dreams and reveals the mysteries hidden from mere mortals. This is when you sacrifice what you've been focused on in the past outside of yourself. So it's kind of like giving up one of your eyes there to peer down the deepest well of possibility for you. And because you're sacrificing these lower natured aspects of yourself, you gain that sense of mastery that allows you access to the numinous mystery. And you come into that alignment of the Four of Swords because you're resting on that truth of the past. You have your mission. You know what you need to do. And that's what's going to protect you against the idle chatter of others. That's going to be what protects you from slander. That's going to be what protects you from envious people because you're not focused there. You recognize my imagination is my superpower, and that becomes your chariot. Again and again and again. As soon as you start thinking about what somebody else is doing or what they did to you in the past or any of that, bring your mind back to you with that simple mantra, my imagination is my superpower. And ask yourself in that moment, how am I using my imagination? Is it furthering my dreams? Or is it connected to fear and worry and stress and drama because I keep focusing it on what they may or may not be doing, or what so-and-so is saying about me, or what happened back there? This is so key. This is so key. As long as you can get recalibrated this way, you're going to find the way forward much easier. You're not going to be struggling against anything because no matter what shows up on your path, you're going to use it as a point of imagination. What can I do with this material? How can I work with this? In what way is this supporting my dream? In what way does this fuel my fire? Do you understand? It's true sense of empowerment, right? This is all about rooting your dreams in reality and recognizing that Apophis can't steal the sun as long as you don't give the power away to those inner saboteurs. You have the strength. You have the resilience with Vine here to overcome the challenges of the past. It's up to you. You got two choices. You can stay focused on the other. You can stay focused in the way you have been, that's been producing the same result, and you will experience a disillusioning tower that's going to wake you up yet again and yet again. That will be another opportunity. Are you going to view that as somebody else bringing that your way, or your inability to really own the inner authority you have to affect your reality by making different choices, by having a different focus? It can also be a tower of power that breaks down the walls that have been holding you back from everything you want to step into here. You can expand your kingdom, okay? There may be some rough waters along the way. Your emotions may be stirred up. And yes, it is an occultist environment. So, are there people out there throwing stuff around? Sure. But when you're in this place of focus, you get to decide what you take on, what you don't. Because if you feel that energy come in your way, if you feel that distorted energy come in your way, that's not mine. I don't align with that. You go right back to my imagination's my superpower, and this is what I see for myself. You don't even take it on. You don't take it into your space. And that energy, where will it go? It will find the witches that directed it outwardly, because it's just the energy coming home to roost. And that's what a lot of these towers are about. These towers are meant to strengthen us, whether they come in a way that's destabilizing because we're not willing to look at the truth, or whether they come as a source of empowerment because it's all about owning our energy. And so we can look at witch in this aspect as being at the helm there. You are the weaver of your world. You are the one that alchemizes the energy. You decide what it becomes. You receive the energy and you decide whether or not you're aligned with that, whether it's resonant, whether you take it on, whether you embody it, whether you buy into that story, or whether you're the one who authors the story of your life. No matter what, the energy always comes back to you. So for those that are out there casting stuff on others, and they're out there, sure, but they're really just casting illusions that will be reflected back to them. It's their energy. It will come back to you. And where people doubt that, that's going to become more evident in this cycle, because the manifestations are picking up. The energy that you're holding, what you're being a conduit of, it's going to really appear in your environment. So the more you're seeing what you're not liking, what you're not digging there, the more you have to own in some way that's your energy. You're corded into that. So you need to uproot that. You need to pull it up by the root and transform it. Then you'll see something different coming your way. See, because there's nothing here that's going to steal your treasure. We got the 6 wands here. There can be others that want to do that. But what is yours? What is your purpose? What you are charged, what you are here to do? Nobody can take that from you unless you give it away to them. And the only way you can do that is by giving up. And the only way you can do that is by doubting your own power, the power you hold, and giving it to others as the outside ruler of your life. You got to start really looking at it in this way, all right? Now, this will be challenged. You may have people from the past who come back around and challenge your growth. And so do be prepared for a little testing of your mettle there. Do you have the strength to face this in a new way? I do believe that you're going to have some long-held questions answered for you. And it's all about how you respond to the answers to those questions. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, let any burning question you have, let the answer be you and how you choose to step into your power now. How you are ready to step into the unknown and do things differently than you have in the past. And where that is in relation to people of the past, people that you're ironing things out with, that's where the growth is. You might be surprised with some of the reactions you get. It doesn't mean things turn out in all cases where it's like kumbaya, we're all on the same page. But it does mean that you get yourself set on the right track and you take back the authority over your own life and the way you're moving forward, and you don't give that power away to anybody else. We got some more shadowy aspects here. Yes, we got the 3 of Swords, 10 of Swords to the Page of Wands. So you see, this is a test coming through somebody from your past, probably coming around, probably had a hand in some of the stuff that you were grappling with, struggling with. I'm not saying you didn't have any challenges with people creating problems for you. And they would like to come around and feast on what you've been working on here. They would like to get a piece of the game that you secured on this hunt. But this is really about you understanding that you're in a rebirth cycle. And it's up to you whether you choose to go back to receiving just scraps for your efforts and letting other people drain you of your energy, your focus, your determination, by getting caught up in some BS with people who are playing games and trying to, use you as a pawn. There's a lot of secret things that have gone on, a lot of things that are dysfunctional, a lot of things that come from very unhealthy places that have been operating in relationships, in social dynamics, in working with others, in family dynamics, okay? in love. And a lot of those things that have been a secret are going to be revealed to you. And it's those things that can make you shapeshift. It's those things that can make you change your stance. Likewise, you may not know everything. There may be ways that your fears have been the driving force. It may have cost you some opportunities in the past. When you hear another's truth, you may see things in a new way. Ultimately, you're going to have to listen to where you're at intuitively as you move through these challenges and ironing things out with people from your past, closing cycles, wrapping things up, releasing old situations, letting things go. Whether or not you choose to invest in opening up a new cycle is up to you. But it's all going to be about really paying attention to where you're at now and not losing that point of inner calibration that you achieve at this time. You went through something in the past that really did make you feel like those who should have been in your corner, or those that you thought you had an affinity with, turned out to really work against you. You may have dealt with situations that you felt stripped you of your dignity, where you lost a lot that you had built painstakingly. And that can even be just a sense of self that you experienced, you know, going through a time of questioning, you know. Some of you, it may have shaken your confidence a bit. Some of you may have felt like a fool, like how did I get myself in that situation again? Some of you may have been tested by a character that you faced off with in the past, only to experience a reoccurrence of the same old shit that you thought you had gotten over before. All right? And some of you experienced that and you rose to the challenge and you didn't respond in the habitual way. That may have been a tower for the other person, okay? I do feel like this energy is coming back around. Somebody is going through changes. Whatever went down here, it was a checkmate. Whether you felt like somebody checkmated you or whether you checkmated another because you didn't respond in the same way you had in the past. And now they're like, wait a minute, I'm seeing things differently. All right. There could be some cases where somebody thinks you may not know of their involvement in some less than desirable stuff that went down back there. But this is when you really need to trust, again, what's coming at you spontaneously in the moment. Trust your inner sovereignty to be able to call the shots here. Some of these energies coming forward, if you let them in, you may be able to iron things out. You may be able to heal things. But it does take active involvement, engagement, you know, between both parties. It does require a slow, steady process of doing the work together. You're going to know pretty fast whether or not somebody has those intentions or not, right? Any sign of pressure is a big clue. We've been talking about this for a while. Any desire to have you throw caution to the wind when you know in your gut it doesn't feel right to do so, well, there's your answer right there, right? In other cases, these are people that are still on the same time, you know? They haven't learned yet. And now it's their turn to see that you did learn, you did grow from the experience, and you're getting an opportunity to respond in a new way, all right? It should be interesting. It's all about how you handle it. I'm kind of curious how the overwhelming majority of you will handle this. So let me get a little detail here to cap this off. Oh, did you see that? Whoa, that's the second time that's happened in a video recently. Well, I know. That's fairy communicating. There's a fairy, Brian Froud's fairy. I forget the name of the fairy. I'll have to pull it up. She has a leaf as a mask. So yes, the masks are falling away. I got that, first of all. If somebody was operating in a situation behind the scenes and you weren't aware of it, I think they're going to be revealed. There's somebody that's taking a risk to bring down the mask. I also feel that an old cycle is coming to an end, like something's falling away here. And what is coming in here, it's pretty wild, okay? Yes, it's the rebirth of the Venusian energy. It's coming in with butterfly clan, air sign energy, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. I had a butterfly that was holding up that leaf on these cherry blossoms here. So this might be a clue about some real point of transformation that comes through in the spring, shortly after stepping through that ring of fire in Aquarius on March 17th. That's really wild how that happened. Okay. It also could be like you're seeing each other for the first time too, you know? There's something here about defenses falling away. It brings through something pretty potently here. Also, the old way is over. I feel like cycles closed. Cycles closed, so something moves forward in a new way, whether it's you moving forward on your own or moving forward in this connection in a new way. The sun. You're not at this point yet, but it's here. It says rejuvenation of life, restoration, protection from adversaries. Ooh. This is when you really get to Ragnarok. The Chariot gets to Ragnarok. I feel like in the spring, 8 of Pentacles, if you do the work. You got to do the work, man. You got to own it. You got to recognize that you are the one that turns water into wine and back again. And you're the one who can turn that bad blood into wine as well. You can turn any metal into legal tender coins. And you can make a fool wise. And it starts with you. Sometimes you gotta fool the fools who think they've been fooling you. And sometimes that fool has been you. And once you see it, you find the way through.